Welcome, Bronco Nation. My three keys to the game for Boise State versus Fresno State. This game will be taking place on October 8th at 7:45 p.m. Mountain Time on FS1. Boise State favored in this matchup by 73% and given a 7.5-point favorite according to Vegas. Now, Boise State is 3-2 coming into this matchup. Fresno State 1-3. They got a win against Cal Poly to open up their season. Got a really close loss to Oregon State. And then they lost big time to USC, ended up losing Jake Haener in that matchup, which will be something we'll talk about today. And then losing to UCONN, which again is something we'll talk about and how that impacts this matchup. We're going to go through, we're going to talk about the series history between these two teams. This is a rivalry game, battle for the milk can. We're going to talk about the key players for both teams, keys to the game for Boise State, and a summary overall, and my prediction for who I think is going to win this matchup here for Boise State versus Fresno State. So let's get right into it then. Series history between these two teams. Boise State has dominated this matchup overall, at least for a time, a long stretch there, going kind of between the early 2000s and the late 2000s, or mid 2000s there. 16-7 overall, Boise State leading that series. Fresno State opened it up with a win in 1977, win 7-42 there by Fresno State. Then Boise State has won a lot of the last previous matchups. They did meet 3 times in big-time games and 3 times in the Mountain West Championship game in the last 10 years. Boise State owning those 2-1, but a memorable loss in the last Mountain West Championship game that Boise State was in. And then also in 2021, Boise State and managing to pull out a win, a big upset win by Boise State that a lot of people expected them to lose. They were kind of coming to that. That was kind of a really prove-it moment for Andy Avalos and this staff to prove that they could go out and win against a rival. Andy Avalos, as a head coach and as a player, has never lost to Boise State. So this is going to be an opportunity for Andy Avalos to continue that streak of wins against Fresno State and continue the wins like he did in 2021 when Boise State won 40-14. Now, key players in this matchup. For Boise State, it's going to be, number one here, I'm going to talk about is Taylor Green. This is a guy who is Boise State's offense is flowing through this new freshman quarterback. He had his first start last week, and it was a great start on the season. He is 24 for 38 for 203 yards, and he's also rushed for 207 yards, averaging 10.9 yards per carry. Last week, not big on throwing, 5 of 10 for 48 yards and interception, but once they got him going in the second half on the ground, 8 carries, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He was electric, had an amazing long touchdown run there in the second half. So this is a guy that Boise State is going to want to lean on in this. When he was able to take off and find momentum and find energy there in the second half, it really seems to bring the rest of the team with him. His running performance sparked great running performances by Ashton Jeanty and by George Holani. So if Taylor Green can have a big game, then Boise State can have a good chance of winning this one. Second, I'm going to talk about Ashton Jeanty. Obviously, George Holani's your starting running back. I think that's clear. I don't think that there's necessarily a competition there for the starting running back spot. George Holani, he's been here for a long time. He's a great caliber running back. But Boise State has an amazing, and I mean incredible, true freshman in Ashton Jeanty, who is just having a breakout season this year in his first year in the FBS. He is really climbing the charts here with statistically 201 yards carrying overall on the season, averaging 5.2 yards per carry. In last game, 12 carries for 82 yards, 6.8 yards average, and a touchdown, and he looked amazing. He's looked better and better every single game that Boise State's been able to get him a lot of snaps, hoping that he can have a big game here because when he plays well, it seems to also fire George Holani. I think it's a little bit of the defenses now having to deal with 2 different backs, and they give them a slightly different look. I mean, both these guys are speedy and shifty, but Ashton Jeanty's a little bit more of a power charge runner, whereas George Holani's a little bit more of that shifty feet. And so when these guys start working in tandem, George Holani, he has a better game. Ashton Jeanty has a better game. Boise State's offense overall has a better performance. So Ashton Jeanty, I'm hoping that he continues to get quality reps, quality carries as Boise State continues to focus on the ground game here. Ashton Jeanty, the freshman, hoping he has a big game here against Fresno State. And then for the last guy, here's going to be DJ Schramm. Haven't mentioned him yet as a key player, but he really needs to be mentioned because he's leading Boise State in tackles, 44 tackles, 1 forced fumble. This is a guy who 3 years prior, he's a 4th-year player for Boise State senior, 3 years prior to this, he had a total of 36 tackles. Last season, he had 24, I think, tackles overall. So in 3 years prior, he had 36 tackles overall. This year, through 5 games, is leading the team 44 tackles and a forced fumble. He has been amazing. He's been reliable, but more than that, I mean, this isn't just a guy who's going out there and doing the right things, you know, being in the right spot. He is playing with energy. He is getting through. He is making sacks against the quarterback. He's forcing fumbles, like we said, with that forced fumble. He is actually he's hitting hard. He's playing at a top-tier level. He's really getting a chance, I think, to be one of the top defensive players in the Mountain West this year. And who knows, he might open some eyes for some training camps. He definitely reminds me a little bit of a Tanner Vallejo type of guy. I think he could go and hang around for some training camps and even get into some teams and provide a valuable role for them, like he's been doing this Boise State team. So I'm excited for him. And I think that if he can have a big defensive performance here, especially against a Fresno team that probably is going to be leaning on the run game, Boise State's going to do much better this game. So three players overall there to look out for Boise State. Now for Fresno State, Haener has been officially ruled out for this matchup. So it's going to come down to the running back here. Jordan Mims, the senior listed preseason, one of the top running backs in the Mountain West. He's had a pretty good year so far. 348 yards rushing on 5 touchdowns. Last game, however, not the case. 39 yards, 15 carries, 39 yards, 2.6 yards per carry average, and a touchdown. Without Jake Haener behind him and the focus running purely through Mims, the defense for UConn was able to focus on the one guy that was basically the offense there for Fresno State, and they shut him down. This is a guy who had back-to-back 100-yard games against Power 5 opponents in Oregon State and USC, 100-plus yard games against both of those teams, but he comes in against UConn and gets shut down. Now, that's bad news for Fresno because it really doesn't look like their backup quarterback situation, and we might not see the same guy that we saw go up against UConn. There's some people saying that maybe they need to see some other players, but I mean, Haener was their guy. I mean, it wasn't kind of like Boise State, and we'll talk about this later, but it wasn't kind of exactly like Boise State where there were some questions around Bachmeier and everyone was yelling to go see the backup. But no, Haener was the trusted starter, proven starter for Fresno State. There was no quarterback controversy. He was the offense. He goes down. Now Fresno State having to deal with this issue, and Mims is the guy. Well, he didn't step up against UConn. Can he step up against Boise State? That's going to be a big question here for Fresno State. Second and third, really, I'll loop these two guys in together because it's defensive focus here, because with the offense struggling, they're going to need to shut down the Boise State defense to give their offense time to get into this game. It's going to be linebacker Lavelle Bailey. He's first on the team in tackles, 32 tackles and a forced fumble, and defensive back Braylon Lux, 24 tackles and a sack, also 3 passes defended and a forced fumble. Both of these guys, I'm not sure how much of a role the passing game will have in this performance, but the DB here, Brandon Lux, also a player on the line there. Guy can come down to stop the run. And obviously your linebacker there, Lavelle Bailey, 32 tackles and a forced fumble. If these guys, the defense overall for Fresno State, can stop Boise State running the ball, it doesn't really seem right now like they have a potent passing game. So it's going to come down to the running game. If Boise State isn't able to get the ball moving on the ground, that's going to be a major issue for them. So these guys are going to be key for Fresno State in a chance to beat Boise State here at home. So keys to the game for Boise State. Number one is run Green out the gate, okay? This is a running quarterback. You know, this is a guy who has amazing speed, amazing athleticism. I love the players, the Boise State players. Skinner talked about it. I believe that George Charles was talking about it as well. And they were saying it looks like he's jogging out there when he's running. And because he just has such natural athleticism and he's so tall. I mean, this guy is really tall. He is a natural athlete for Boise State, and he has an arm. You know, he has an arm. He has some pretty good arm strength. His accuracy is definitely something that he needs to work on. But his legs are his main weapon. They're his best weapon. Boise State really out the gate last game didn't really rely on him on the run game. I mean, they were trying to use his arm in the passing game. He had 6 passing attempts and only 1 rushing attempt, 1 yard in the first half. Second half, complete reversal. Only 4 passing attempts in the second half. 107 carries for 104 yards in the second half against San Diego State. That's what sparked the comeback. That's what sparked the second half. Boise State needs to lean on Green out the bat, use his legs, because in addition to that being the best thing that he brings to the field, if he's able to get some good runs out there, if he's able to get into the flow of the game, you know, break off some long carries and start getting that energy and that momentum, that's going to bleed into his passing game as well. He's going to have some more confidence. He's going to know, okay, I'm able to go out here and perform for this team. I'm doing well. He'll feel good about himself. And the defense is going to have to account for him. They're going to have to come in. They're going to say, okay, he's eating us up here on defense. Maybe we need to bite up a little bit, open up some opportunities over the top for the passing game here with Green. So definitely focus on the running game with Green. Second key is going to kind of build right off of that, and that's going to embrace the run overall. Boise State has been saying pretty much the whole season that they want to run a run-heavy attack. Now, it's something that Tim Plow, being the air raid style guy, that wasn't his strong point. But you've got a new offensive coordinator bringing back Dirk Cutter here, who is definitely well-versed in running a multitude of different offenses. You wouldn't nail him down to being a pass-heavy guy. I mean, he's run lots of different kinds of offensive styles throughout his career. He's a guy who's able to definitely call plays better in the running game, and you have a quarterback who's much better in the running game. Boise State has all the pieces to actually run the offense that Andy Avalos has been wanting to run this whole season. And honestly, the guys that are now, new offensive coordinator and new quarterback, while I still don't think necessarily that a run-heavy attack is the most effective style of offense going forward for Boise State, at least this season with what they've been building to and trying to run that offense, these guys do run that offense better than Bachmeier or Plow, who would be better in a pass-heavy or at least balanced attack offense. So Boise State just needs to embrace that. They tried in the first half, like we talked about with Green, trying to come out with the passing game, not using his legs that effectively, trying to kind of mix it up. They had some trick plays that they were trying to do that were covered well, so they weren't able to get that opportunity. Boise State just needs to embrace that run-heavy attack. I'm not saying don't go with the pass. You'll see here in my third key that I'm going to talk about that. But I'm not saying don't go completely away from the pass, but embrace the offense that you said you want to be, okay? It worked in the second half against San Diego State. Yeah, Fresno State's going to be expecting it, but this is not a defense that defends well against the run. Fresno State's given up 100 yards or more to every single, or 100 yards plus, to every single team they played, including Cal Poly. And last week against UCONN, they gave up 180-plus yards. So there's some vulnerabilities in the running game, and that will fit in perfect with Boise State's offensive style. So just come out and establish yourself. You don't try to be multiple things like Boise State has been doing pretty much this whole season. They've been trying to run, bounce attack, run heavy, pass heavy, and it's just not worked. You can't run that hodgepodge Frankenstein, or to be more literally correct, Frankenstein's monster form of an offense and try to and find success. You have to pick something that you want to be. Boise State's clearly said that they want to be a run-heavy attack team. You've got the pieces. You've got the running backs. You've got the quarterback. Offensive line is working better than they have this season. Maybe that's because they're finally focusing on the thing that they're good at, or focusing on one specific thing and then being able to become good at that. And so as Boise State continues to chip away and bring multiple running backs here, because Green is basically another running back for Boise State, the fact that the defense is having to cover 3 guys there in the backfield already is going to help the offensive line because the defense is already going to be on a back foot. So Boise State, run Green and embrace the run overall. 2 keys, maybe they mesh together, but I think those are the 2 biggest focuses here for Boise State. Now, the third one here, and this might contradict a little bit, but I think that it has a place, is you do need to find the pass. Boise State, last game, like we said, 5 of 10, 48 yards. You can still be a run-heavy, run-first team and still have a passing game. We don't need to go all Army here, or Air Force. We're not going triple option, but we don't need to go all, academy team where we run the ball every single play and maybe throw the ball like 5-10 times. I think Boise State still has great wide receivers. Especially you've got Cutter was looking really good. Bowens had a great deep reception, and of course Cobbs and Caples, and you got some great freshmen. We haven't seen McAllister this year. I really think he has something to contribute on the team. Boise State's got great wide receivers. Boise State's got great wide receivers. Taylor Green is a good quarterback when he's given the right style of offense to work with. So I don't think necessarily running him the deep ball is the best approach. But if you give him some short opportunities, some short passing opportunities to the slot receivers, to the tight ends, we've got great wide receiving tight ends, or great receiving tight ends, to the running backs. These are great receiving running backs. Lonnie especially, he's shown that throughout his whole career. And I think also that Ashton Genty has also shown he's able to be a part of that. So giving the passing game a part of this offense, does that mean bringing in Vidlak for some plays? I mean, that's really kind of an interesting discussion overall. Usually you have your passing quarterback, who's your main guy, and then you'll bring in your run specialist to run some kind of hybrid form of the offense, and it's basically kind of an option play where they'll run the ball. And you got your running quarterback that you bring in for a play or two, and then you put it back on the sideline, and then your passing quarterback comes back out. Well, Boise State's kind of in a weird situation where they're running quarterbacks on the field, And their passing quarterback, Vidlak, who has a great arm. I mean, he looked good in that first half. Boise State's offense was not as effective with him as they were with Green in the run-heavy attack in the second half, but he still looked good. I mean, he completed a 50-plus yard pass to Billy Bowens. He had some good completion, so he definitely has a good arm. So the question is, do you bring Vidlak in? I mean, that's kind of a tough situation because you know if you bring him in that you're almost definitely going to be passing it. So the defense is going to be ready for it. It's going to be a little harder to find those windows. Is there a role for him? The coaching staff has said that they want to use Vidlak as well, that there's still a role for him in this offense. I'll believe it when I see it because they said that about Green while he sat on the bench under Bachmeier. So is there a place, is there a role for Vidlak? Can he open up the passing game? I'm not necessarily advocating for that, but Boise State does need to find a way to work in more of a pass. Not necessarily saying that you should have more passing yards than running yards. I don't think you should. Like I said, focus on the run. Boise State's running yards should eclipse their passing yards with the kind of offense that Andy Avalos wants to run. But there should still be, 100 yards passing. You should still see some competency out of the passing game here for Boise State to help the running game, if anything. And I think the more that these defenses suck up and expect to run, you're going to find opportunities over the top. So find some ways to work in the pass, but overall, run Green right out the gate. Embrace the run game overall. You're a run-heavy, run-first offense. Embrace that. And then find some form of passing game that works and meshes well with the run-style offense that you're trying to run. All right, overview overall here before I give my predictions. Boise State crushed, coming into this game, and I'll start off a little bit further back. Coming into this game, and you watched my review of the whole debacle with Tim Plow being fired and then Hank Bachmeier leaving. I mean, I said I thought Boise State was going to definitely lose San Diego State, Fresno State, BYU, and Air Force, and would struggle to beat the rest of the teams on this schedule. Maybe might not even make a bowl game. And so coming into this matchup, I mean, because I don't think anybody expected, even the fans who thought things would be better, I don't think anybody expected what happened in the second half against San Diego State to happen. And then it did. So I went, coming into this matchup against Fresno State, before that happened, I thought it would be a loss for sure. But then that happened, and I went, And then Jake Haener ruled out against USC. Technically, timeline-wise, that happened before the Boise State game, but ruled out. Injured in the first half, I believe, or maybe it was just at the start of the second half, but injured at some point during the USC game. He's gone. You could think, And then Fresno State loses to UCONN. I mean, that is a bad team. It's worse, I think, than the loss to UTEP. UConn is better this season. I mean, they played Utah State pretty close, even though Utah State also looks terrible this year. And they obviously just beat Fresno State. I have a friend who we previewed when Liberty football, we were previewing their season. Liberty is going to end up playing UConn on their schedule. So we talked about them, and he had some positive things to say about them. I had kind of been doing some scouting for them, and been talking to some of his friends who were kind of big on UConn. So, they're not saying bowl game necessarily, but they're saying, 4 or 5 wins, which for UConn is definitely a step forward. So this isn't necessarily the absolute trash, bottom of the barrel team UConn that we've been seeing for the last few years, but they're still a bad team. Fresno State, a top team in the Mountain West, whether you have your starting quarterback or not, should beat UConn. I mean, that goes without saying. Especially when you go out and you play Oregon State close like that, 35-32. That again, it shouldn't just be one player when you're a team like Fresno State. So that's bad. That's a bad loss. So those factors just right there, I mean, that lets you know Boise State's got a good chance against this team, obviously. I mean, Boise State's offense is finally finding itself. They're more effective so far this year than they have at any point. And again, like I said, I'm not a fan necessarily of the run-heavy tech. It's something we've never seen at Boise State, and I don't know long-term if it's going to be something that can be repeated successfully year after year. But I have to look at the facts and say, wow. The offense is running better than they have for the last 3 years. I mean, even going back to 2020 when Brian Harsin was still here. So the offense is running better than they have for the last 3 years and definitely better than they have this season. This works. And they're a great defense, and you've got an offense that's working. You do have a Fresno State team that, even though they just lost to UConn and have lost their star quarterback and they're definitely down, they definitely prevented challenges always. They obviously want to win this game because this is a big rivalry game, Battle of the Milk Can. They're angry. They're trying to come back from the loss last season, so anything could happen here on the blue. But when you look at the differences between these two teams, you know, Boise State loses their starting quarterback. Fresno State loses their starting quarterback. The difference is that when Boise State lost their starting quarterback, the guy who came in actually fit better with the offensive style, which was run heavy, that Andy Avalos has been pushing for this whole year. He actually fit in better than Hank Bachmeier. That's not the case, like I said, with Haener. He was their starter. There was a pass-heavy attack. He was their guy, and now he's gone. And it's a balanced attack, but he's gone. And the backup is not a guy who molds well with the offense. You know, Fresno State is not built for the running game as a team overall. They're built for using the passing game and the running game together to work towards a victory, and they just don't have a competent passing game right now with the subs that they have coming in at the quarterback position. So, is the UConn game a turning point for Fresno State? Are they going to come into this game and Boise State loses UTEP and then has an incredible, crazy, great game against San Diego State? That could happen for Fresno State. That loss to UConn could be that turning point, that awakening moment. They come in angry. They come into the rivalry game. They're ready to play. They probably have a good amount of fans traveling up for the game. They're inspired. They're ready to come get the win. They might do that. But I just don't think it's going to happen because of everything that we've said. I mean, Boise State is on a roll here. I think that Fresno State will try to key in against the running game. They'll be ready for it. San Diego State was not ready for that. Fresno State will be, but it's not a team that protects against the run very well overall anyway, even if they know they're going to get lined up and smacked in the mouth. 180-plus yards against UConn. They don't have a proven offense. Boise State's D-line is great. They should be able to shut down the Fresno State running game. Now, Boise State has had kind of a history of unproven backups coming in and having great games against them. I mean, you can go back several teams that has happened against Boise State. So that could happen here. I mean, Boise State that could happen against this defense. And the secondary is a weak point for Boise State. So if Fresno State can figure out a way to get their passing game active and involved, they could make this a battle. But I just think that Boise State's defense is too good. Fresno State's offense is too bad overall. And Boise State has momentum. They have energy. It's on the blue. They have a resurgent offense. The fan base is hyped. Boise State is going to pack out that stadium. If this was in Fresno, you know, maybe I'd say close win by Fresno. But I think it's going to be a good Boise State win. I think Boise State's going to win this game 31, Fresno State 20. And I know that's a complete reversal from what I was saying 2 weeks ago. But 2 weeks ago, Boise State hadn't come back in the second half against San Diego State with 35 unanswered points and 300-plus yards of offense on the ground overall in the second half, and 300-plus yards of rushing overall in the game, which I cannot remember the last time that happened for a Boise State team. Taylor Green looks really good here when using his legs in the proper form of offense. Boise State comes out with the right game plan. The defense comes out strong against a Fresno State team that's struggling. I don't see how Boise State doesn't come out of this one with a win. So I'm excited for this, Boise State fans. I'm as surprised as maybe some of you are to be sitting here giving this prediction, but I think Boise State can come in here at home, on the blue. Magical, like Avery Williams said, magical things happen on the blue. So I'm excited to see what happens in this game for Boise State versus Fresno State. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'll be doing a review of the game, and I'll be doing 3 keys to the game for the next matchup and game review and the matchup of that, win or lose, all season long. So make sure you like, subscribe for all great Boise State related content, also Mountain West college football in general, as I have time to get to it. But obviously, Boise State the focus on this channel. So thanks so much for watching. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll finish this off as we do every video. Go Big Blue!